Hello, folks. Dr. Kevin Polk here. It's 3:59, and I'm getting fired up here to do this webinar about inserting a tactical pause in emotionally charged situations. And just so you know right off, I'll be introducing a new, at least a new PowerPoint driven matrix for all of you to look at. And I've drawn it before with just my whiteboard, but this time I actually took the trouble, and actually once I figured out how to do it, it was really easy to do another one. So you'll see that in just a minute. I got 3 people online, and I'm looking for my chat. There we go. And if you'll say hello and where you're from. So I'm going to say like hello from Maine. There we go. I said hello from Maine, and that's where I am, in the state of Maine, USA. And we have some people coming online. 6. Renee from Iowa. Oh, great. Iowa. I think maybe I sort of got something in the works that I may be coming to Iowa, but I can't remember exactly it is. Michigan, Chicago. Wow, we're right in that geographical area of the USA. That's cool. By happenstance. Israel. Wow, Yassi went way over. So way away from the Midwestern United States. That's great. Makes us international. Usually we are. Often we have United States, Canada, Europe. Oh, and Australia oftentimes joins us. In the Middle East. I don't know if maybe once Africa joined, and every once in a while South America kicks in. So I think that's pretty well the extent of it, which is pretty good. We got 7. Bo gets fired up. This is one where I said I'll do it in 15 minutes. I'm going to give it a shot at doing it in 15 minutes. And this one probably, since I'm going to present a little new flavor on the matrix, I will probably, as long as everything lines up right, download the video and put it up onto YouTube. And you'll be able to watch it in YouTube, which people like because then they can fast forward back and forth. And that's cool. Whereas the other way, on just within Webinar Jam, they can't. So I'll be doing that. And so far, that's been working smoothly. So what you see before you, I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's 4:02. Probably some other people will come on. Maybe not. I posted this one pretty late, even though 200 and some odd people signed up for it. 250, really. But they'll get it on the recording. They know that. Just know it's going to be on the YouTube, probably. So there we go. We got 5 senses experiencing mental toward away and who's important to you. In case you haven't been with me recently, that's how I start. If I go into any room, any people, including a webinar, I have the question, who's important to you, up to set the context. That is, set the context about, we're going to be talking about the general gist of what we'll be doing is moving toward who's important to you, who's important to us. So this, I find things work out very well if I do that. So the next thing we go to, I'm going to go to the traditional matrix. Just in case you're new to the matrix, it starts with your 5 senses experiencing. I'm going to go ahead and fire up my whiteboard here and switch to my favorite blue color for my stylus. And so 3 or 5 senses experiencing, this is also your learning history up here. So learning mean the stuff that you're, whoa, I got some Halloween looking letters there. Didn't mean to do that. Sorry, you can tell I'm easily entertained. But anyway, this is where, information about your world, and you repeatedly get presented with information hundreds and thousands of times. And so that's your learning history that has come in through your environment. But in the here and now, you pay attention to your five senses. So what you're seeing, what you're hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, the basic five senses. We go down to the bottom, there's mental experiencing, and that's just what's going on in your head. Some of it you're aware of, like your chatterbox mind. We all have it. We're driving around and our mind is chattering at us, and that we're aware of that. But of course, there's many other things that we're not so aware of, and definitely not even aware of. And that's that really deep learning history, that the stuff we've been seeing since we were born, literally, and it's become very ingrained and part of us. And of course, a big way about changing things is changing your environment and changing the inputs that are coming at you. Aha, you're on a webinar with Dr. Kevin Polk, so hopefully it'll change. So there's that. I'm going to turn off the whiteboard just for a second and move on to back to, I'm sorry, I forgot that we also talk about the toward side of the matrix, and that's about moving toward who and what's important to you, moving toward satisfaction, essentially. And then the away side of the matrix is moving away from unwanted mental experiencing. So bring back this is yucky stuff goes down here. Oops. Sometimes when I turn off the whiteboard and come back, it doesn't work anymore. Yep, and that's what's happened this time. It's not working anymore. Isn't that a bummer? Maybe if I go that way. No, I just can't get it to, I cannot get my whiteboard to work again. I got to report that to Webinar Jam because it just absolutely, well, now I can get it to work with that, but not with my trackpad. Oh, well, clear that. Nope, it's just not going to work. So we're going to give up on that so I don't burn a bunch of time playing with that. Just know that the away side in the lower left is yucky stuff. So pain, anxiety, depression, sadness, yucky stuff that shows up. You want to do away moves to get away from that stuff. We all do. And the most basic one is, of course, fear. And fear shows up and we want to get away from it and do away moves. And very important to remember that. And we notice the difference between how it feels to move toward that satisfying stuff versus how it feels to move away and get relief from that scary stuff or painful stuff. So that's the basic matrix. And then once again, the lower right quadrant starts with who's important to you. So we chatted up about who's important to you. Somebody type in somebody who's important to you, just if you're alive out there. Sarah or Larry or Renee or one of the other people online. Let me know who's important to you. Family, friends, wife, husband, children, dog, cat, bird. Who's important to you? And somebody type. My daughter. There you go, Sarah. Thank you very much. So your daughter is important to you, and she would go down there. And nope, no matter how much I try, that's not going to come back. So anyways, who's important to you goes in the lower right. Renee says kids are important. So we talk about that. And we put those down there in the lower right because, as I said, that orients us to thinking about the most important things with community members. Great. Most important stuff in our lives is about moving toward our loved ones, the people who are most important to us. Why do I say that? We know from deathbed interviews from thousands of people, 90-something% of them will all say they wish they had spent more time with their loved ones. So that's the big important thing for all of us is the most important thing is our loved ones, even our community members and such. And so we orient toward that. We then go to the what shows up and gets in the way. That same old stuff like fear. Fear can show up and get in the way of moving toward who's important to you. You meet somebody, you'd like to go out on a date with them, you think about asking out on a date, boom, fear of rejection shows up. And if you went with that, it could get in the way. And of course, many, many, many other things can show up and get in the way. This yucky stuff that shows up on the inside. Favorite away moves is the stuff you go to most often to move away from fear and pain and such. And we all have our Netflixes and yoga and exercise and a glass of wine and this, that, and the other that we do as away moves. And they're fine. You'll see in a later slide, many of those are very workable. And then some of them aren't so workable. So we have to be careful with that. And then, of course, we have our toward moves. And that's the stuff that we do to move toward who's important in the first place. You can also add in the committed actions toward values, the larger stuff in there as well. But I tend to focus on the concrete stuff that you can do to move toward who's important to you. And so that's the matrix with its two discrimination tasks, which is noticing the difference between sensory and mental experiencing. That's one discrimination task. And the other is noticing the difference between how it feels to move toward versus how it feels to move away. And that's the second one. And then we fluff it up, add more information for us to play with it with the who's important, with the 4 quadrants. So, if you know the ProSocial matrix, I'm not doing that today, but we would add a second loop that starts with what's your shared purpose. So would be presenting to more than one person. So, but in this case, we're going to add this circle. And you'll notice I've put a circle all the way around the matrix. And I've asked the question, workable for values, ? And people have asked me before, so I'm like, so since who's important to you is in the lower right, where do values go? Well, ACT is built on what's known as the Workability Model, meaning in any context, that is the here and now, where you are, whatever you're doing, whether it's inside of you or an observable behavior, you can always pause and ask the question, is this workable for my values? You can even say, is it workable for moving toward who's important to me? That works well, that's good too. But the idea is, and this is where a lot of people get tripped up on with ACT, they get to thinking that experiential avoidance, which is the left-hand side of the matrix over there, this over here, they get to thinking, I can do it on this one, so I will. I'm just going to use my trackpad. Sort of looks like that. If I could do it. I did it. Sort of kind of a line where something yucky shows up on the inside of you and you do some away move to get away from it. And that's experiential avoidance, or it can be experiential avoidance. I guess it is. If you got pain and you're trying to move away from it, you're trying to move away from the experience of pain. But as we all know, that's not always a bad thing. You got a really bad toothache, you want to get rid of it. So they say, but your mind will switch on and start thinking, oh, well, away moves are bad. Well, no, they're not bad. They're an away move. The question is, does it work? And that's why I put out that larger picture outside of the matrix, which is now asking that workability question, workable for value. So these thoughts that I'm thinking, gee, do they work for what's valuable to me, the values I want to move toward? Even this, the stuff that's showing up and getting in the way, it could be workable for moving toward who's important to you. Might not be workable. Away moves, for sure. Some are workable, some aren't. Toward moves, toward moves aren't all great. You can end up doing too many of them. there's a host of toward moves that can end up being unworkable, and you need to be aware of that and doing the workability question. So why is this important? Why is putting this big circle around the matrix and putting the workable for values? Is because that's the question after you do the technical pause. Tactical. We were playing around with a new book out. I'm reading Bouncing Back from Trauma, Frank Gallo, new Matrix book out. Wonderful book. Do get it. You can find it on Amazon and do it. And we were kidding around with a deep breathing in that first responder world is oftentimes called tactical breathing. So I said, hey, well, there's a tactical pause. So that's where that came from, with the idea being that you're in some highly charged situation. Of course, with first responders, that can be really life and death situations. But first responders are EMTs, police officers, fire people, stuff like that. So really highly charged emotional situations. But people in everyday life, emergency room doctors and social workers out on the streets, or workers out on the streets that are dealing with people who are somehow, something's terribly wrong. Maybe they're suicidal or something. It's an emotionally charged situation. And so when the context, that is the five senses experience, tells us that, oh my, this is, and it triggers that emotional response, that high emotional response, the human body heads for the reptilian brain, the amygdala, whatever you want to call it. And it's right for that, and fear shows up. And that's why they talk about tactical breathing, because you don't want to be running around, fighting fires or intervening in police matters and stuff, going hyperventilating. So slow down, tactical breathing. Slow down your breathing, because we know tons of studies have done this. If you do that rapid breathing and you have that fear response, that fight, flight, or freeze response, you get tunnel vision, which is not a good thing if you need to be responding to the entire context. And what happens is a massive amount of fear shows up in the lower left side. And with that fear, the probability of away moves is very high, because you want to get away from the fear. And the problem is that, of course, with that carries with it the probability that the away move may well be unworkable, that you're going to do it in haste. I'm not saying you do it on purpose or anything, but you'll do it in haste and end up with what experience would otherwise let you know that it's not such a workable move. And so the trick, of course, is to then add in a pause. And this is not new. We've been adding in the pause for quite a while, but I'm switching it from sort of a pause before you're, go off the wagon or something, to a pause when you're in this emotionally charged situation, which we all get in sometimes. And it doesn't matter who we are or what, we get into those situations, and the fear response shows up, and here comes the away moves. And maybe an away move is not the best move in that situation, or at least that particular away move is not the best move. And sometimes you don't know what to do, and that's a whole different story. But a lot of times there's been research, there's been training, there's lots of education around that does give you a pretty good idea of what you probably need to do next. It's just in the state of that emotionally charged situation, and your body's desire to book it, fight, flight, or freeze, whatever, well, you can forget it. So that's why the tactical pause. So not only tactical breathing, but a tactical pause. can you give an example of towards move that is unworkable? Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Oh, sure. You decide to buy your, I'm going to go with buying your wife flowers example. So I buy my wife flowers, and she loves it. So I'd say, great, I'll buy her some tomorrow, and I'll buy her some more tomorrow. And I ended up buying her so darn many flowers that I just overwhelmed her with flowers. And I spent too much money on flowers and all kinds of stuff. They're toward moves, but I'm overdoing it, overworking it, overdoing the toward moves. And this is part of the model of behaviors. Even a toward move that works once or twice might get unworkable if you do it too much. So you need to be paying attention to the results of the toward moves and getting the feedback, noticing how they're working or not working, and there comes in the workable. Is this still workable? Is this still workable? So any behavior, whether toward or away, can be workable or not workable. And some toward moves, like, oh, I know a great idea. I'll go buy my wife some 2x4s as a toward move. And I give her the 2x4s, and she looks at me. And if I'm really paying attention, I will probably, and I guarantee you in my case, this would be the case, wouldn't work so well. There's a joke in my family about buying snow tires for anniversary. Somebody said some relative did that once. I think it's a joke. But anyway, not so workable. Toward move, not so workable. So that's what I mean. Snow tires, that'd be a good idea. You buy snow tires for your wife. Maybe you buy snow tires for your husband, and he thinks it's the greatest thing ever. It's toward move. But if you buy your husband, I don't know, room deodorizer, maybe it's not it's a toward move, but it didn't work so well. So all kinds of things like that. And then as we teach people, you do a toward move, especially toward moves. We pick on those a lot. But then you carefully notice what the result was. And that's very important to really notice how the results. And then you can fine tune your moves. Well, it's the same way with away moves, by the way. If you're open and you notice, it's like I'm going to do yoga to relieve some stress. And so you go do some yoga. And then you notice, well, how did that work? And great, it worked great. Now, here's what can happen. Some people say, well, if it worked a little bit, yoga can totally wipe out all the stress in my life. And so I'm going to just do yoga, and get rid of all my stress. And most anybody tell you, well, that's unrealistic. You're going to get yourself in a stuck loop with yoga, of all things. And people can do that. So once again, you want to notice the workability of what you're doing and how much of it is works, and when you end up doing too much, which is sort of an addictive pattern and stuff. So where does this go? Where are we going to put this? I'm going to try something just for the heck of it. Like, unplug that. I'm resetting my nope, that didn't work. There we go. No, there we go. Now we're back. Maybe this will work. Let's see. Nope. For whatever reason, whenever I should learn not to turn off my trackpad. Looks like this. I turn it off, and once I turn it off, it doesn't work. Everybody remind me, don't turn off your trackpad when you got it going, or the slideshow. So, no, don't do that. There we go. So what are we talking about doing here? You're talking about noticing your emotional response to a highly charged situation. And that takes some practice. But especially if you're working as a first responder or in an emergency room or in a crisis center of a hospital or something where this happens a lot, you can practice noticing your emotional response. And your emotional response, I just can't lay off my whiteboard, happens down here. I'm just making a little black dot. So the five senses experiencing that told you that the emotional response is up there. And then this emotional response shows up here. And what you want to do is notice. Usually, if I got lucky, I could actually I'm just going to put a big N there. How's that? That's an N for noticing. So noticing your emotional response is very important. What I'm adding with this, and what I've added recently with folks, is that in that space, and it's only a second or two or three, add the workability question. And that is, you've noticed, okay, I'm having a fear response and I'm thinking about doing X. 9 times out of 10, folks, that's what it is, because we're all prone to do that away response in those emotionally charged situations. And then notice, okay, is that going to be workable for, the bigger picture of things that I want to work toward in my life? And in that's what we're naming a tactical pause. But the tactical pause includes the question, is it workable for values? Is what I'm about to do, is there a pretty good probability, based on experience, my experience and other people's experience, is it going to work? And if you need more time to think, well, then take more time to think. I'm serious. What so many of us do is we think we have to do an instant response to a situation where we at least have a few minutes. And if you have a few minutes, my wife oftentimes says, if you're with somebody and you seem pressured and you don't know, my wife's a psychologist, by the way, and you're pressured and you don't know what to say, gee, I need to go to the bathroom. Nobody questions you needing to go to the bathroom, whether you need to or not. I need to go to the bathroom. It didn't say you needed to do anything other than think there. But then you go somewhere else and you call somebody up or whatever and do a pause. Now, that would really be a tactical pause. But even in just a few moments where you can look and say, gee, this thing I'm about to do, is that going to be workable? Now, even if you go ahead and do it, at least you insert it in the workability question. And later on, you can answer, gee, yeah, I think it worked. Maybe it didn't work. Of course, sometimes it takes hours and days and weeks before things develop and you really learn if it was truly a workable response. You don't know. But notice I've pegged this in on emotionally charged situations. I'm not talking about your sort of everyday stuff. This is like the big stuff that happens. And then it's so important to practice this, this pause. But now we're adding in a tactical pause. Is what I'm about to do, does it make sense for the workability of values question? And when you add that in, a lot of times it'll help you go, whoa, I'm about to do a knee-jerk away response that's probably, it's not well thought out. It's highly volatile and unpredictable. Better pause. Keep pausing. Maybe I can ask help. Whatever. Try get a little thought. And if you can't do that, well, whatever. Think about it later on, and add in the workability question later on. The big message today is, and I'm going to add this to the matrix, this workability question, because that adds in the philosophical point of view that it operates from. Any behavior, internal or external, can be workable or not workable, unworkable, for your values, which of course includes who's important to you. So that's what we're doing. So that pause is down there at the bottom, and you're really trying to just pause. You're not trying to do a behavior. Internally, you might be doing stuff, but inside of you, you're paused. You're centering. You're pausing, and then considering the workability of what you have the urge to do. So that's it. That's adding the technical pause, and I'll be putting this up on YouTube. Hopefully you can see it. I do a lot of this kind of work with a lot of people. I just messed up and clicked the wrong thing on my computer. I do the ProSocial Mastermind. You can click on that and see about joining. If the price tag blows you away, well, there's many reasons why it's that. However, I'll work with you. So if you want to play around and do the ProSocial Matrix with me, we meet 3 times a week now. I do webinars with people. Some of these webinars you see showing up are me co-hosting webinars with ProSocial Mastermind students of mine. I've got like 20, at least 20, I think 24 actually, if you really counted them all up in it now. So we do have folks in, but if you're in a situation where that price tag is just not going to work for you, hey, email me, and I'm a nice guy. We figure stuff out. But if you can, there are people out there that's really not that much trouble for them, and that's fine too. We've had people do that. So whatever it does for you. If you're interested in doing the pro-social, which is taking this stuff that I talk about, even tactical pauses, and inserting them into the business world. And organizations, so nonprofit organizations and stuff like that. Churches, we don't always charge churches, though, obviously. Businesses who we're going in as part of their usual training budget, they get charged. Whatever, we figure it out. And I teach you all the marketing and how to do all this and how to do these webinars. And so there you go. A new thing that's for the next Matrix book. That didn't make it into the last Matrix book, the Essential Guide to the ACT Matrix. So now you see the added workability loop. Showed up a few weeks ago or a couple of months ago, and formalizing it now. So that's it. Is there any questions? Or I've got my chat back on. Gene says, thank you. Okay, well, thank you for showing up. I always take, at least I've gotten these things down to 30, 35 minutes or so, which is easier for people to watch and can digest it pretty quickly. So practice on getting that tactical pause inserted into those emotionally charged situations. If you're in the kind of occupation, especially where those happen a lot. So you're very welcome, very, very welcome. Lots of fun. And that's it for today. I think I'll go play with Piper. Hold on a minute. Hey, Piper, come here. In case anybody ever wonders what happened to Piper, my little puppy, well, she's not so little anymore, but she still just stays right here with me and sleeps behind me when I do these webinars. So you can rest assured that Piper here is on duty. She's a very, very good dog. And just lays here with me. So Piper, I wanted to show her off. There you go. Boy, she's all of 45 pounds now. Golden Retriever. So bye-bye now. Oh, sure. Yeah, no lie. Almost 15 pounds from one veterinary visit to another one. So she's really getting up there, but she's quite the sweetheart. And she's with me sort of all the time. So a lot of fun for me. So anyway, here we go. Bye-bye now.